All right, welcome back, everybody. It's been 3 weeks this time. Sorry about that. I had something going on last week, and I'm going to have something going on next week. So I decided to do it this week in order to not have it go on for too long that we don't do these. So welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining in. Curtis is here from Minnesota already. Today, I'm doing something a little different. Again, I'm always trying to change things up. I'm going to have a guest on, and she's very cool. One of those Montana people that you get to meet when you're out here. And I actually worked with her. She's still at Sotheby's. She was there when I was there. And she has an interesting background, and we'll talk about it here. And I'll bring her on right now. Her name is Alexis Waite, and I believe she's ready to go. Hey, Alexis.
Hi, Will.
Hello there. So
Hi.
I was telling everybody that I got to know you through work at Sotheby's, and
Yes.
the like I said, Alexis is a cool kind of only in Montana person that you meet while you're out here, and she used to be a professional snowboarder, and so like I said, I wanted to have some guests on now, and um, I thought she'd be fun to talk to. So maybe we have some photos we can put up. Um, but first, I told Alexis, sorry, Alexis, I'm rambling, which I normally do. If maybe introduce yourself and talk for a moment.
Yes. Well, as Will said, I'm Alexis Waite. I've been a realtor in the Whitefish area for 3 years now, but feels like career number 10 for me in my short-ish life at this point. Um, but yeah, I was a professional snowboarder all through my 20s, my late teens, and as a 18-year-old, I won nationals for freestyle all around, and then went on to get sponsored, moved to Tahoe, lived in Salt Lake City, um, competed in the X Games about I always forget, somewhere between 6 and 8 times. There was an injury season and another thing in there, so I always kind of mix that up. Snowboarders have a few head injuries, so bear with me on exactness on that. But yeah, I got to travel all around the world to beautiful mountain towns in Europe, Japan, South America, all over this country, and ended up, I guess, retiring from snowboarding here in Whitefish, Montana over a decade ago.
Well, that's very cool. Let's go through. Alexa sent me some photos of her professional snowboarding, and they're in no particular order. So if you have an order you'd like me to go, let me know. But so the first one is this one. Maybe you can just talk about, what you remember, where this is, why this is.
That was a fun one. So that trick is called a hand plant. It's basically a snowboard trick stolen from the skateboard world, and that was in the Austrian Alps circa probably 2007, 2008. And the photo is by Christy Chaloux, a good friend of mine who currently owns a real estate brokerage in on the Oregon coast.
So I'm going to go to this next photo, and I've always wondered this, whether it's with snowboarders or um, what do you call it, the ski jumper guys. Like,
Oh yeah.
at what point, as you're learning how to snowboard, do you decide to start doing flips and go upside down without killing yourself?
Well, in my era, we learned by just going for it into hopefully powder. Um, and you there I have a lot of injuries to to prove that I learned most of the things on the mountain, all the tricks. But you can start working up. Um, the more you spin, the more flips you add to a trick, the bigger you have to go. So the more consequence. But just starting small on little jumps in the mini park and continuing on from there.
By the way, if I haven't said it, Alexis is nuts, just like the rest of these people. Um, yeah, that one looks like you're upside down again.
Almost. That was I know the snowboard trick names are a little weird, but that's a backside corked 5. That was in Park City, Utah, during some event. I think it was a competition event. Yeah, put on by Roxy. Roxy was one of my main sponsors back then.
And then we have this one. You just look like you're 10,000 feet in the air, but you're probably not.
That one was funny. I see Curtis over here talking about the North Pole, and that actually is above the Arctic Circle.
I think he's talking about north of Pole Bridge, but close.
Oh, I saw North Pole. That's so funny. That's what you do when you scan and have head injuries. But yes, you're right. North of Pole Bridge. Well, that is way north of Pole Bridge. That was above the Arctic Circle in Riksgränsen, Sweden. Yeah, went there for a month. It was pretty fun.
So was that an event or was that you just out having fun somewhere?
Because we were so far north, one of the tough things as a professional snowboarder, well, it's seasonal, right? So you've got the winter season. But if you go to a different hemisphere in the world, you've got winter in North America, summer. And if you go far north, this was in May, maybe even June. That's what it looks like up north of Sweden, in northern Sweden, northern Norway.
Nice. And so do they, like, your sponsor would pay for you to go do these things so they could
Mm-hmm.
and then take these photos or?
Yep. That season we were filming a movie for Roxy, and they sent us up to, we were competing much of the season, so we didn't have as much time to film as we all had hoped. And we were getting towards the end of the season and we didn't have enough footage. Like in this day and age, we didn't have enough content. So we had to go make content up in the North Pole. They didn't, or not the North Pole, north of the Arctic Circle. And yeah, so that's where we went up to do that. It's pretty fun.
Oh, that's cool. And then you got this one.
That
this
looks to me like Park City again.
And then this one's the last one that you sent.
Yes, my kind of random assortment. But this is also in Riksgränsen, and that was a bridge tunnel, or what's the word for it? It was a tunnel for the train that we were jibbing. That's what we call it. Jibbing on the outside of it. So there was a hill behind it. Come down, do tricks on the wall.
Nice. Here, Curtis has a question for you. How does a professional snowboarder make a living?
Endorsements, aka sponsors. So all my companies paid me a monthly salary that I rode for. In return, I was a representative of that company. They would use me in advertisements that they would run. I would have their logo and be representing them in competitions. And then when you win competitions, you have it written in your contract that they often will match your prize money or other things like that, which is great little bonuses. But we operate as independent contractors, or we did operate, they still do, as independent contractors, getting monthly fees as an independent consultant.
So back when you were doing it, I don't want to date you and say that
That's
you're
fine.
old. But, you kind of you were like, wasn't that late 90s when you were doing it?
I started it was mostly the 2000s.
But still, I guess what I'm getting at is that was still, I mean, if I remember right, the X Games weren't huge yet. And I mean, you were kind of at the very beginning, right?
Yes. It was the beginning of the X Games, it was actually a good era where we actually made quite a bit of money. I mean, not bragging, but just putting it in perspective. I was one of the top females in the world at that time and made about 100,000 a year, which was pretty awesome for a 22, 23, 24-year-old. I invested all my money in real estate and then was caught in the 2008 crash as a poster child of who should not have been getting really easy loans. And that's how I got really into real estate. And I see a question over here. How does a professional, or how did you decide on real estate?
Yeah.
So when I was 18, I was already a professional snowboarder. I did a little college. I went to University of Washington. I grew up in the Seattle area. Did that for a fall quarter. Then the winter came and I was going to take winter off. My sponsorships got better and better through that winter. Did not go back to college. And when you live a life like this one, in your early 20s, making good money, doing what you love, it's really hard to fit into a box again. And real estate is something where no matter what type of college degree you have there or don't have, in my case, you absolutely have no limit to what you can accomplish for yourself if you've got hustle, drive, and the will to work hard.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I'm surprised, like I said, that so early on there was that kind of money in it. So you were getting 100 grand a year as a salary, but yet they were like when you went over, well, this is Park City, I think, but
yeah,
I think you said this one was Sweden. When you went to Sweden, you were still getting a salary. That wasn't like you didn't have to buy your plane ticket. They paid for everything and everything while you're over there, right?
Yep.
So you were probably making way more than 100 grand if you add in all of that.
Yeah, expenses were, I didn't have them. I actually took all my money and put it into real estate, which was the smart decision, I thought at the time.
Yeah.
If I could have held on, it would have been the smart decision. But
were you buying stuff back here or just all over the place?
I actually bought in Salt Lake City and in Portland, Oregon, and Bend, Oregon.
Curtis thinks you should have bought in Montana.
Absolutely, I should have bought in Montana. And if I could go back, that's exactly what I would have done.
Yeah. So Alexis's parents live out here, and that's probably how you ended up out here, right? Or was it because of skiing?
It was because my parents ended up relocating out here, and I visited, and it was beautiful. And I honestly, I don't even know. I sound like a complete idiot when I say this, but the truth is I didn't even realize this was a ski town here in Whitefish. It was off my radar. It was such a sleeper mom and pop ski hill. And I was living in Salt Lake City at the time, so we had all the array of ski resorts around us. And Whitefish was really off the beaten path that I didn't even realize there was a ski hill. And then when I did, I was like, oh, wow, this is even better. Cool. Great. It's 10 minutes away. Even better.
So that obviously answers my question I had that I was wondering if you had done any events or skied here before you moved here. Apparently not.
Nope, I hadn't.
Okay, well then I have a follow-up to that. How would you, since now you've obviously skied Whitefish a ton, how would you compare it to all the other places you've been around the world as far as, I don't know, just for everybody out there, I am not a skier, so that's why if you think I sound like an idiot, that's why it is. I grew up in the flatlands, and I'm not much of a skier at all. So I'm always curious to hear the take on our little, I shouldn't say our little mountain. It seems like a good mountain, but I'll let the expert here answer that.
Well, and that actually makes me laugh because just yesterday I was texting Will about golf courses because I'm absolutely not the expert in that field. So that's why we help each other out around here. Honestly, this ski hill is quite a hidden gem. I mean, Whitefish as a place is getting more discovered by the year, and our ski hill is still really, really special. I was coaching the kids freestyle team this last season up there, and I would have normally never been out during Christmas break, because what local in their right mind wants to go skiing on Christmas break? And so I was in essence forced to, because I was coaching the kids and it was their Christmas winter break. So that's when they go. And the lines were about 10-15 minutes, which is great. I am more interested in riding in the trees and the powder, and that's what this place is all about. There's excellent powder in the trees most of the year, or most of the winter season, even when we haven't had snow for 2-3 weeks. But usually we get a couple inches pretty regularly, and people that love the groomers say that our groomers stay great all day long. I don't even notice that, and I guess that's a good thing because I don't notice them ever being bad.
Yeah. So I mentioned your parents earlier. They have a little farm out here that's kind of cool. Maybe you could tell everybody about that.
Yeah, so they came out here pre-retirement, but looking for a new life and a better way to continue into their later years. So they started a little organic farm. They've got a lot of chickens. They have done a lot of things throughout the year. So, but when I say a lot of chickens, there's probably 150 or so. We supply eggs to the local health food market and a few other co-ops locally. And they do microgreens, or they did microgreens for quite a while, and they ended up selling that part of the business. And my dad is a very excellent tomato grower in a place where growing tomatoes is not the easiest thing to do. But it can be done with some effort and some trial and error. And he's figured that out, which is great. And what else do they do? Oh, the biggest part, I guess, is they've got sheep and they do wool. So I think the herd is 50, 60, give or take. 2 livestock guardian dogs, and Great Pyrenees live with the sheep. And that's kind of my mom kind of organizes and gets the boutique wool milled, and we take that to Buffalo, Wyoming each year to do that. And so it's all very, very local, and the furthest it gets is Buffalo, Wyoming, because they've got the mill that's right for our wool. And yeah, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I wanted you to talk about that just because there's so many people up here in this part of the world that do that kind of thing. And a lot of people call me or want to do that kind of thing from around the country. So it's kind of cool.
One of my favorite things about Whitefish is, and the Flathead Valley in general, is people, if they're not from here, they relocate here for a lifestyle and quality change and upgrade. And so there's a lot of really interesting people that are brought to this area.
What breed of sheep do they have is the question.
Good question. Cormo, and there's a little Targhee mixed in, but they've kind of been breeding it out. But the wool of the Cormo became such a fine wool, like small microns would be finer quality wool, that they had to breed in some Targhee to process it properly. That roughened it up a little bit, and that's kind of an overstatement of it, but yeah, Cormo mostly.
And then here's back to the skiing. Here's a question: how does Whitefish compare to Copper Mountain or Breck?
Okay, quite different. I feel that the Colorado mountains have a wide open feel. The trees are different. We've got, okay, so the best way to describe it is we aren't the Rocky Mountains, and we're not the Pacific Northwest Mountains. or even the Pacific Range, the Sierra, those areas get a ton of moisture that hits and a ton of snow. The Rocky Mountains get the colder, lighter, more desirable snow, but can often err on low levels of coverage. Here, we're in the middle, and we're in the middle. We're in the middle for snow quality, and we're in the middle geographically, which causes us to have a really wonderful. I mean, we'll have some very moderate temperatures throughout most of the winter, and we do get some cold spurts, and usually on those during those times it gets really clear and sunny and beautiful, but it's cold, and that's when we have the more of the Rocky Mountain influence. And when we have the more typical Pacific Northwest influence, we're getting quite a bit of snow and a bit of cloud cover. You're going to have more sunny days in Colorado, let's be honest, but we've got deeper snow, more of it, and really fun trees.
So if you had to pick one resort anywhere that you've ever skied to ski for the rest of your life, where would it be? And don't say Whitefish, because I know you're lying.
Yeah, I would be. Austrian Alps.
Yeah.
Yep. They're pretty spectacular.
Do they have I've never been over there, but it sounds like that's a pretty wide area. Is there like
It is.
a ton
Okay,
of resorts? Are there like one main one, or is there a bunch of them?
there's a bunch of them, and it's interesting because it's really weaved into the way of life there. So you've got mom and pop resorts mixed with they're just kind of sprinkled all over when you're in the range. But I really loved the oh gosh, and Meyer is Meyerhofen? That is in Austria. I've been to so many of them that I mix up all their names, but think Meyerhofen. Possibly I could be getting my geography wrong, and that could be in southern Germany. I don't think so. Now I'm just sounding like I've had a lot of head injuries, which I have. So
You keep going back to that.
it's true, because my recall on that time of my life, unfortunately, isn't as good as it should be.
So I guess that's a fair question. Do you again, because of the time you were doing it, and I'm going with my hockey background, and
Yeah.
the concussion thing wasn't, I don't know, again, you were right on the line there, but
Yeah.
was concussions even a thing back then, or was it like, oh, get up and shake it off and get back in there?
Shake it off.
Yeah.
We'll wake you up every hour. Yeah, that was pretty much it. I see a question about Phillipsburg.
Oh, they're asking about, yeah, is that a good investment? Totally off what we were talking about. I was going to go through all these later.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, they said, would Phillipsburg Anaconda be a good investment? Yes, anywhere in Western Montana. Anaconda is an interesting town, though. They are, I don't know if it's Brighter Day is who posted this, if you know much about the history, but you should Google it. They have a long history with the mining. They were what do they call that? So the big mines were in Butte, but then they took all the tailings and everything over to Anaconda to be treated, and now Anaconda has these huge mountains of black. I don't even know what it is. The tailings, I guess.
Coal mines.
Yeah, and so they even have the golf course in Anaconda. Their sand traps are black sand because it's part of the stuff, or all the tailings over there. So anyway, that's a little blurb about Anaconda.
That's interesting.
Let's see. I guess that kind of covered all the questions. So everybody feel free to ask questions. Alexis will be with us for the whole time here. And
I do have to get a charge cord though, because I am running low. But
okay, if you need to do that, why don't you do that? And I'll go through and do the police report that we do every week.
Perfect.
I'll take you off right now. So let's go to our favorite thing that we started doing and do the police reports. Let's see. The first one we had was at 10:06 a.m. Someone wanted to report that their phone and wallet had been stolen last August. Don't have any updates as if they ever found that or not. So just a little public service announcement. If you have a problem with the police, you should probably call before a year goes by. They could probably help you a little better. 109, two teenage boys got in a fight in a store parking lot. Afterward, they shook hands and went their separate ways. Well, that was nice of them. They must be hockey players. What else? Someone reported seeing a man dressed too warmly for the weather outside. Again, caring people here. They call the police if they see you're not dressed properly. And then we have some animal news. 3 cows were loitering on the roadway. Don't want the cows getting in the way. 222, a caller requested a welfare check on a dog that was on the roof of a neighboring house. Either the dog is very good at jumping, or I'm not sure what was going on with that dog. And then we have someone called after complaints to their HOA had not resolved a neighbor's foot-tall grass. Apparently, the owner of the home in question passed away last year and was not able to mow the yard anymore. Well, that makes sense. That usually affects somebody's ability to mow the lawn. So I'm not sure how they didn't realize he had died, but I guess they didn't. Let's see, 727, a man on the street was playing the violin very loudly. You do not want that. And then someone was concerned that the fisherman casting from a swimming dock would accidentally hook some kids that were swimming. Another big time call to the police there. And then finally, a dog and a raccoon got into a fight. And unfortunately, the raccoon won. So there is our police report for this edition. Hope you enjoyed that. Oops, let me go back and get that off of there. Then we can go back to our questions here. Let's see. Where was the pick on your community tab a week ago? I'm not sure. I don't do those. I try to do those every day, but I don't always get to them. I see Alexis is back. Are you all set up?
I am. Yep.
All right, good. Let's see. Suzanne Miller, that's my kind of crime, non-existent. Yes, our crime here. I mean, we have crime here. Obviously, I pick out the funny ones, but you know, the crimes that most people are used to in the bigger cities are not. It's not like that here. So, brighter day. Buy now or wait a year. You know, prices are going down a little bit, but if you look at I don't have it ready, but if you look at our chart and you can look back at some of my videos, the last video I did was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago on the market, and I show these charts. But you know, here in this area, we kind of go up and down a little, but it's consistently going up. And if you look at our prices from 2008 compared to now, and Alexis mentioned this earlier, had you bought a bunch of places back then when the foreclosures were selling for nothing and all of that, you'd be very wealthy right now. And like I always say, they're not building any more mountain towns, and there's not a lot of places in the lower 48 that are like this. So would you agree with that, Miss World Traveler?
Absolutely. And Glacier Park's not going anywhere. Flathead Lake's not going anywhere. Whitefish Lake is not going anywhere. It's a pretty wonderful spot and a very special spot, especially if you're a cash buyer. Just get in.
Yeah, let's see. Buying now just exasperates the irrational housing market. Prices need to come down. I'm pre-approved for 240 and I can't find a 3-bedroom that my wife and myself can live in. Yeah, it's a bad deal. And, again, unfortunately, because of the pandemic and because of the Yellowstone show and because of world politics or national politics, everybody wants to move to a pretty place in the mountains, and that's what we have here. So I don't, unfortunately, I don't ever see the prices coming back to where they were, um, which sucks for the locals. And it's going to be tough. Obviously, you've been looking around, and you know that places for 240 are big time fixer uppers, and that's just it's just it's what happened. It's nobody can do anything about the pandemic and the politics around the country and all of it, and that's just
Well,
has
and
affected our area immensely.
I'm a local who rents. I don't own currently, and I'm in real estate and I see it every day, and I am very aware of that challenge, and I'm working my butt off to try to change it for me, but for myself. But yeah, and the more people are working remotely, I know there's been shakeups over the last year where a lot of people are back going to the office again, at least a little bit. That might change things, but as long as people are working remote and able to live in places like we have, prices will continue to stay up, and just the nature of this place. I don't know. Do you agree with that, Will?
Yeah, no, and again, it's unfortunate for the people trying to get in here, but I don't know. I mean, you look at, and maybe you can speak to this with your past, but you look at Aspen and Vale, and I always compare this is kind of, I'm guessing, uh, and I don't even know what year Aspen and Vale were discovered, but
Yeah.
I'm guessing that, same kind of thing happened there whenever that was. And
Yeah.
their prices have never come down.
No, they haven't. And when you're when you have natural beauty or amenities like we have here, the prices don't get rocked too much.
Yeah. I mean, the currently the interest rates have slowed things down. And but the other thing that I didn't mention, I mean, I've mentioned it before, but just recently or just now was uh because of COVID and everything, our inventory is way down. I mean, again, we're starting to get a few more houses on the market, but it's still way lower than it was in 2019. Um, and
Yep.
that's adding to the prices as well. So,
Yep.
let's see. Finding rent within Missoula has been a nightmare for someone who doesn't live locally, but finally found one, and we'll be seeing it through Zoom on Tuesday. Well, good luck. I hope that works out for you. And,
Yeah.
um, in this area up in the Flathead Valley, and I'm sure Missoula is the same. I haven't been down there in a while, but uh, they're building apartments as quick as they can. I mean, Alexis knows that between here and Kalispell, there's an area called Silverbrook, and seems like every time I drive to Kalispell, there's a new building going up down there, and they're all apartments. And I know that down in Kalispell, they're doing that huge development of apartments and condos where that old grain mill was, the part of
Yeah.
that railway project.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it just Northwest Montana and all, I should say Western Montana as a whole, just totally got caught off guard with everyone in the planet deciding to move here all at once. And they're just still trying to catch up and build houses and build housing. And it's just going to take a while to get it all figured out. So let's see. Fortunately, half the out-of-state buyers leave once they experience how harsh our winters can be. That that is kind of funny. That I don't know if you've noticed that, Alexis, but
Yeah.
it seems like it's a maybe 3 years people will put up with it because they all come out here right now, and this time of year is perfect.
Yeah.
It's like the desert in winter. Um, it's just there's no humidity. It's sunny. It's perfect. And then they come out and visit, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is awesome!" And then they show up, or I should say January and February shows up, and they're like, "Wow, this isn't like July was."
Oh yeah, and then there was the year that we had Christmas, the Christmas holiday went -30.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was a good one. That was 2 years ago.
So, like I was saying, people will buy, and then the first winter they're like, "Oh, that was pretty bad," but they persevere, they get through it, and then they get to the next summer and like, "Oh my God, it's beautiful, and I'm so happy." And then the second winter hits, and most people will tap out after that. Um, but some people make it to a third winter, and then they just can't hang anymore. And it's mostly people, I don't know about you, but it's, the people from Texas or Southern California or Arizona that are used to, their harsh weather is 115 degrees, where you can still go outside and you can still do stuff. When it's 40 below zero, 30 below zero, and white out conditions, you're just hunkered in and you're not leaving the house.
Exactly.
So,
Well, and I did live in Arizona for a brief moment in my life, and I was there in the summertime. And an Arizona summer is almost the same as a Montana winter, where you just are in the house.
yeah, well, yeah, I used to, when I was doing the golf course thing, I was down in the desert, and I didn't mind. Because at night when the sun wasn't out, I didn't mind the hot. I thought it was nice, because there was no humidity and you could go out with shorts on, and it was beautiful, and the sun wasn't beating on you. But yeah, from basically 9 or 10 in the morning until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you just stayed in the house because it was too
Yep.
hot.
Yep. Exactly.
So, what else we have here? Let's see. I'm looking at property online just south of Red Lodge outside of Cody, remote area. Would you know how the annual snowfall or what's the annual snowfall in that area? I don't. Do you know that, Alexis?
Um, it is less than here. I know that for sure. I would what I w- I bet the Red Lodge Resort website would have information on that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'd say
Um,
usually ski areas give a higher. It's usually a higher number than what it would be like to live in the town.
yeah. And yeah, I don't know how far out of Red Lodge you are, but and I've never, to be honest with you, I've been to Red Lodge, but I've never been south down to Cody.
I haven't either.
So I don't even know what the landscape is, if it kind of goes down from Red Lodge or if it's kind of high deserty or what. I don't know.
Yeah, is it the same if it's a similar elevation?
Yeah, I don't know. A short while before COVID, I found a property in the Big Fork area with 81 acres, along with a house and a shop for 135 grand. I wasn't fully prepared to buy, and that's yeah, that would have been a very good investment.
Good job. Excellent job.
No, he said he didn't buy it.
Oh, I thought he said he did.
No, or did he?
Oh man.
No, I wasn't fully prepared to buy just then, and boy, that seems like long ago. Yeah,
I'm gonna
that
put an umbrella up because we're getting a little sprinkle out here.
uh, I'll let Alexis work a little bit. Let's see. Coming from Florida, where 320 days out of the year the temperature is 120 a day and 96 at night, Montana weather will be interesting to experience. Yeah, I don't know. See, what I don't mind the desert because there's no humidity. my wife and I went on a trip down to the Southeast last fall, and I told her after that trip I could never again live east of Denver. I mean, I don't know how anybody out there that's listening that lives east of Denver um, puts up with the humidity, because it's brutal. And I do not enjoy that. I would take our, up here where it's so dry, which unfortunately then leads to fires. But we don't have the humidity that they have east of here. Andrew, I've seen 80 Montana winters. Well, thanks for tuning in, Andrew. That's a lot of winters. So you can hang. Let's see. On the bright side, I got really good at catching fish through the ice. There you go. It's like breathing hot soup. Yes. That is just nasty. So back to Alexis and her skiing career. We were talking earlier, for those that just tuned in, Alexis is a former professional snowboarder, and we were talking about her former career and her travels. And so I was just curious, did you just kind of follow the winter all year long, or did you have an off season?
So I
Speaking
followed
of
the winter.
winter.
Yeah. I was in snow conditions for roughly 10 to 11 months of the year for about a decade. Now, some of that was at Mount Hood on the glacier, and so back in town, and that's in Oregon, I would spend my summers there. And so we would go up on the glacier at Mount Hood and ski and snowboard all day, and then come back to town, and it was real summer. So it doesn't sound as brutal or it wasn't as brutal as it sounds. But we would go to the southern hemisphere a lot, so New Zealand and South America. It was great.
Was it like in New Zealand? Is that, could you? And again, this may be a stupid question, but I am not a skier. Did you? Is there a huge difference between the southern hemisphere and northern hemisphere when it comes to mountains, or is it all kind of like it's just another mountain?
More like just another mountain. The biggest difference, honestly, the US is and when we include Canada, so North America is just such a vast place with so much variation region to region, and our different ranges are very unique as far as mountains go, that I mean, everywhere I've been in the world, I could compare it to some place in the US or Canada, it feels.
Well, that's I guess good for us.
Yes. But the best part about traveling and the most unique parts was really the food and the activities after the mountain, the après ski.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in Japan it was bathhouses and a lot of fish for eating, and then in Europe it was quite different. And yeah, it's so the culture of the mountains are very different from internationally, but the actual mountains themselves, I can compare them to places here.
Curtis wants to know if you ever broke your legs.
No, but I did break both my heels at the same time. So I guess that's part of my leg.
How do you break your heel?
Ugh. That actually was that was not, I wouldn't say career ending, but it was a long road to pain-free living. I felt that break for about 2 years after I did it, and I overshot a 190-foot jump in Breckenridge and went straight to the bottom of the landing on an icy day and landed on my feet, thank goodness, because or else I would have broken something else and it would have been way worse.
Again, no thank you. I'll stay on the ground. This guy says, yeah, but the Powder Highway in Canada is a snowboard heaven.
Agreed. I agree with that.
Isn't that so? We're going up to Canada next week. That's why I'm doing the live this week. We go up to Golden. We have some friends that have a place up there that are Canadian friends. We go up every summer. Isn't it like Golden and Kamloops and I don't even know what all the towns are, the Powder Highway, but isn't that on it?
I believe so.
Have you
Harry
skied
probably knows
Golden?
more, but I've been in that area before, and it is incredible. That's why I had to include Canada in my we've got everything up here. But the Canadian
Yeah.
mountains are absolutely beautiful, and that's what's so great about our area is we're so close to the border, and we can drive up to the Powder Highway. And yes, Kicking Horse is absolutely the best. I agree.
Is Kicking Horse the one in Golden?
I forget. I forget what town it is. I feel like when I go up there, I'm kind of just going to Kicking Horse.
Because that how long of a drive is it? It takes us about I think 4 hours.
Yeah, right.
We're out of Whitefish, but yeah, we're just north of Kalispell.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, well, now, Harry, I feel like an idiot because I should have known that. Kicking Horse right outside Golden, their house, or they bought, my friend's business bought this house. They use it as a rental. It's an investment property, but then they reserve it for themselves in the summer. And then obviously while they're skiing in the winter, and we go and meet them in the summer and we play golf out there. So yeah, I guess I should have known that was the name of the resort because their house is right at the base, and that's where I will be next week at this time. So there you go. What else? Oh, before we got on the skiing thing again, he said, tell us about the economy in Kalispell. Has the COVID boom ended, or is Kalispell's economy still hot? I think it's still hot. And I don't I don't know if this is a good sign or bad sign, but like it's so annoying because I like Chipotle, but the one in Kalispell they don't even open the lobby anymore. You have to only go through the drive-through and order online because they can't find anybody to work in there.
I
And
went there the other day and was like, I turned around because it was just too much.
yeah, you get there thinking you're going to walk in and order a burrito, and then they're like, oh, you got to order online and sit there. And so yeah, I'm sure they're getting hammered on what they thought they were going to be making, because I'm guessing most people do what we did and just turn around. um, but yeah, the construction is going crazy in Kalispell. So yeah, I would say it's still booming. Every time I go down there, there's more and more people, and there's more and more buildings being put up, and it is definitely growing. So yeah,
I have a big listing going on in Kalispell soon, which is a 28 unit duplex unit or project. So we're not even on MLS yet, but there's a lot of projects popping up like that in the
gotcha.
Kalispell area.
Curtis just pointed out that I rudely forgot his first question. Curtis, where in Minnesota are you from, by the way? Just curious, and I will answer your question.
Oh, you mean about the North Pole?
Yeah. Well, are there good roads north of Polebridge? Just looking for some idea when I go to Polebridge in 3 weeks. Well, there's a road, the main road that just goes up. What is it?
Not paved.
Another 20 miles north of Polebridge before you hit the Canadian border. There's some Forest Service roads that go off of that main road. That's the North Fork Road. But when you say good roads, I mean, they're fine. That it just depends. The later in the summer you get, the worse they get, because they just get, the washboardy, and they try and grade them all in the spring when it's still kind of wet, but this time of year they get dried up and the roads aren't usually great. And it's funny, they've been debating paving that road to Polebridge ever since I've lived here, and people fight it every time they bring it up because they don't, because it's true. If they paved that road, that would turn into the Autobahn and there'd be a million people in Polebridge. Would you
Already?
agree?
Yeah, I do. And already I hear, I mean, Polebridge is on people's radar when they come to visit. It's on a lot of tourists' radar these days. I don't think it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So it is getting busier, and if they paved it, I think it would turn into something that wouldn't be uniquely Polebridge.
Yeah. Let's see. It's all about inventory. Montana can have a great economy, but without inventory houses, it's a moot point. The 28 units, is that condos or freestanding homes?
Duplexes.
All right.
And agreed.
And then there was another one here. Oh, this is for you, Alexis. How did you get into the mindset of I'm going down a steep mountain and through trees at a high rate of speed, and this is fine? That is a great question.
Yeah, it is.
I agree with that question.
Well, I think I was probably born with a bit of a screw loose. There's a certain amount of nerves. It's all about harnessing fear and nerves. I remember being at the top of a course, like I did. So in the X Games and big competitions, my event was slope style. So if anybody's familiar, that's when you see the jumps and the metal rails going through a course, and we're judged. So it was less about speed, more about tricks. And there'd be times when I'd be standing up there and I didn't even know how I would be able to go do a run because my body was shaking so badly from nerves. Both being scared of what I was about to do and because it's a competition setting. And there's this brief and fleeting moment where it stops, your mind gets quiet, and you just have to hold on to that until they say, okay, go. You 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, drop. So it was about harnessing that quiet and that people getting in the flow. And yeah, there's a moment your body stops shaking and you're like, okay, better take advantage of it right now.
So again, maybe a stupid question, but is that, I'm going to relate this to golf, which is stupid, but like every golf course or every golf tournament is on a different course, which is different challenges.
Yeah.
Are all the courses different, or did you guys kind of like have a set, you do this turn and that jump, or were they all kind of the same?
Different. And I mean, golf's not too, it's a different type of nerves. It's more of well, for both, it's performance nerves. Mine just had a little bit of, if I mess up, I could die.
You don't really need to worry about that when you're golfing for the
No.
most part.
No.
So, well, that's cool.
And we also had a few days of practice before every event. I should add on to that. So you try to get as used to your environment as possible.
Well, I was going to ask that too. So you would get there a few days ahead of time and
Yep. A few days ahead of time and ride the course over and over as much as you were allowed, because they usually held practices for different, let's say, if skiers and snowboarders, like at the X Games, are both doing the same course, they'll have a skier practice and a snowboarder practice, and not just to separate us for. There's actually good reasons, because the tracks in the snow are different and the speeds are different. So made sense.
yeah. Let's see. Oh, SR, can you train? Can you or do you obviously train during the off season? It sounds like you didn't really have much of an off season. Is that right?
I didn't have a whole lot. The biggest downtimes were typically when we were injured. And I say we as far as like everybody in the industry. as a professional. So our injury time was our biggest down season. But what I really liked to do in the summers, I did ride a little bit less, where I'd have more time. I might have a couple weeks off in a row. And I did a lot of yoga because stretching is huge, especially when you fall. That's when you notice when you fall and tumble down a mountain, and you're not limber. That's when problems happen. And I've actually played a lot of soccer in the summertime. That was what I thought I was going to do professionally when I was a kid. So I loved soccer, and just staying healthy and active was the best thing. There wasn't a whole lot in my day and age that we did sport specific for training, other than just general health, fitness, and wellness. And if you had a specific injury, of course, you did your PT and your physical therapy for those, maybe some of your weak points in your body.
All right. Curtis, thanks, Will. When I drive to Polbridge, I want more than just the Huckleberry Bear Claws. I want to venture out past the Mercantile. It's beautiful up there. There's no doubt. Just make sure you have your maps. Have you ever, this is a question for you, Alexis. Have you ever, I never have, but isn't there a way to mountain bike, or I think obviously you could even drive it? It's like a logging road between, you go down past Whitefish Lake up towards Eureka and then cut over some pass and you end up in Polbridge.
Yeah, so I have horses now, which is kind of my one of my new passions. That's a Montana developed passion. I've always dreamed of doing a little route from my home here and heading up and around that North Road. And I know a lot of people. I've got some friends that have the enduro bikes, and of course you can mountain bike. But yeah, there is a road. It's pretty cool.
So you've done that?
Though I haven't done it.
Oh, okay. And Harry had another one. Could you tell us about how you get your listings photographed? Is there a company that does that in the Flathead Valley, or do you have in-house photographers at your company? I think every agent does it differently. I know that I have a guy I like to use. I'm sure Alexis, has her people.
Yeah, the photographers are pretty independent. So it's their jobs to appeal and advertise themselves to the realtors. Seems to be how it works, and then you use them, and if they do good work for you, you keep using them and recommending them. Referral business.
Yeah, and if you're getting ready to list a house, if the realtor just comes out and starts snapping photos with their phone, then you got the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. Best alpine lake hike. We'll end on this. We're almost right to an hour, so we'll each give our own input here, and so you go first.
I like heading up to the Jewel Basin.
That is awesome.
Yep.
What's the name of that lake up there? It's like the first one you come to.
I forget. I don't know. I know it's right over there, and I know where to park, and I know where to drive.
Alexis is doing the secret, don't tell anyone, the secret lake. So, and that brings me to mine. I think it was last summer, it may have been the summer before, but some friends of ours, and this is how bad it is. They said, we're going to go up to this lake. And I said, oh, what's the name of the lake? And they said, it's Lake X. They wouldn't even tell me. And
yeah.
So yeah, but it was beautiful, and it was over. You accessed it off the backside of the reservoir, so it was over the mountains here in the valley, on the other side of the mountains here in the valley. So, anyway, there are tons of alpine lake hikes around here. You could hike every day for 10 years and not hit all of them. So, yeah, if you're looking for that, you will not have a problem. And then somebody just threw in a question about Alexis and rating the ski resort. If you rewatch this, we hit all that, and she broke all that down earlier, so we won't do that again. And And then John, this is a compliment
Nice
to you.
looking.
How is it you get the best looking co-hosts?
Ah, thanks, John. Appreciate that today.
Yeah. Nobody ever says that about me. I don't know what it is, but anyway, thank you, Alexis, and thank you everybody for tuning in. I will be back in 2 weeks, and if you have any questions for me or Alexis, my email is down below, and we will see everybody in a couple weeks.
Thanks,
Goodbye.
guys. Thanks, Will.